Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here again with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo, and it's just going to be us tonight. We have a bunch of guests booked for the fall, but I thought it'd be nice to check in and we haven't updated you all on what we're doing, and so we're going to talk about a couple things tonight. I recently did a serial with my pen name, and actually went pretty well, made some good money with that. So the guys are going to ask me some questions about that. And then we decided, since Joe's been a full-time author, quit his day job now for a little over a year, that we'd talk also about when it's time to quit the day job, when you might want to consider that, and what you should have in place before you jump into that. But before we get into our topics, do you guys have any news you want to share?
Well, I can say that my sixth Tale of the Lantari book is going along well. I should be able to hit my target of the end of December, which would actually make me with 4 titles released this year, and for me, that's astronomically insane. My research continues for my 10th book with a genre I cannot mention for obvious reasons, and it's been going well, learning more about crap I never had any desire to learn about, i.e. wines and whatnot, but oh well, it's all for research. I keep telling myself that anyways. And aside from that, that's pretty much where I'm at here. Everything's going well.
Cool. I saw you asking about wine on your Facebook page. So
Yeah,
no,
I don't know a damn thing about it. I don't know anything. I mean, and I have a character inheriting a winery. He's like, what the hell is all this crap? How do I mess with this? I'm like, well, I really have no freaking idea about this. So had to learn about it.
yeah, my sister-in-law is the resident wine expert. She's the reason I went on a wine tasting. On a wine tasting. I guess there's no follow-up word to that.
Excursion. There you go.
Yeah, there you are. All right. Well, as for me, I got some news. I probably, fingers crossed, if I'm good, I'll finish my next sci-fi book this week. I'm in the climax. Well, I should do the first draft of it. I'm in the climax, and if I have 2 or 3 more good days, I'll probably finish the plot, and then it's time for the second draft. So that's nice. And I also went to New York Comic Con last weekend. So I just Thursday, Friday, Saturday I went. I wouldn't go on Sunday, and I met 5 fans. 4 of them on one day, and 1 of them on the other day.
Did you dress up? Is it some sort of a character?
I did not dress up. I thought about it. I have a mad scientist outfit, but then people would be asking. If I wore the mad scientist outfit, people would assume that I was supposed to be Doc Brown, not because I look like him, but because there were so many Doc Browns this year. Because Back to the Future 2, their arrival date in the future is just this month.
Too bad they're not selling any souvenirs from Back to the Future 2.
Oh! They're selling all sorts of souvenirs, and they had Pepsi Perfect, which they would give to people who were dressed as Marty McFly. And this year, a lot of people were dressed as Marty McFly because they were selling the Marty McFly Back to the Future 2 hat, which doesn't fit over my headphones, but I assure you it does fit on my head. And I had to buy
It might fit
it.
if you took off the tag.
Well, you know. I'm not planning on collecting it or having resale value. I just haven't gotten around to clipping it out yet. Because believe it or not, I'm probably not going to walk the town wearing this hat.
Out of curiosity, what does Pepsi Perfect taste like? Is it just Pepsi?
It's just Pepsi in a fancy bottle, but it's a really fancy bottle.
Do you have one of those?
I don't have one of those. You had to be dressed as Marty, and I did not have an orange vest.
But you have a hat. You could just put it on here.
I could have. The guy I bought it from warned me that someone might try to steal it from me because they were kind of a hot commodity this year. And I was like, oh, well, just not wear it then. How's that? Oh, yeah, and the other thing I have, one of the other things I did was I went to camp. I made a bracelet with my name on it and a cow. And that was actually prep work. There's a thing I'm planning on hopefully making some merchandise with called the Glow Forge. Look it up. It's kind of a cool thing. It's for cutting out stuff, and you can cut out leather with it. So I might make keychains or stuff. I don't know. And I went and talked to leather people about that, and they convinced me to make a bracelet.
A cow?
There's a lot. If you ever, you know what? You can't see any of it in the picture, but I am inundated with cow paraphernalia. It's ever since 1989 when I chose a cow ornament for the tree. It was decided that I am Mr. Cow. I got one right here. Every year I get something that's a cow. That's my money cow. We're
You're
learning all
that
sorts of stuff about me
person.
today.
I thought only like that happened to grandmas, and because we had someone in the family that was also that person that had the cow creamer and
Yep.
got cow gifts.
I have got a
Never met a
disappointing
guy
number of
that
cows.
was
Yeah,
that
well, I'm
person.
that guy. Yeah. I think it's the only thing I got. Oh, it's in my bedroom.
How's the reno going?
It's going. It's so far no major problems. It's lots of fumes and tiles being cut today. So again, quite noisy, and the door is still leaning someplace it ought not be.
Therefore, I was asking. I said, well, there's still an extra door in your room there, so.
Yeah. We're going to end up with an extra door because we removed a closet. So one of those doors is going to have to find a new home. Maybe we'll make a desk out of it.
No, I say I put it on the wall anyways and say, yeah, my R&D is right through that door right there. Have someone open it up and nothing there.
That'd be good. But yeah, it sort of concludes my news, I suppose. Unless I also got a new sculpture, which I haven't found a place for yet. So I have this. Woo! I can't believe that it was successfully mailed to me. This is great radio, by the way, for people listening.
They're impressed.
I'm
Trust
I'm
me.
I'm holding up a figurine of a character.
Nice. I see your pretzel bottle is almost full.
It's been refilled. It won't be full, next week. But this concludes my
Status
news.
updates.
Yes.
All right. Well, here, most of the stuff I've been doing has been with the pen name the last couple months. I do have a new release coming out, and I released a novella also, so I lied. But the pen name, I decided to go all into KDP Select, KU, Kindle Unlimited when 2.0 came out. I saw some people reporting on how much money they were making with the page reads, and since I always write novels with my pen name and the serial, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, it was suddenly a lot more interesting than when it was 130 or something like that for each borrow, because for like a 100,000 word novel now you can make, I don't know what it is, I didn't do the math on that, but $3-4 maybe. With the current plan rate of payment, they change it every month, and we'll see how long it stays pretty good. But yeah, I'll talk more about the serial. Guys are gonna ask me some questions with it. Finishing up my Dragon Blood series. Gonna have the 7th one out just before Christmas, and then I'm gonna actually catch up with some stuff I've been neglecting. Hopefully next year. It's hard to go back to existing series. I always tend to see shiny new projects and want to work on those instead. So I guess that's for my news. That's it. I don't know. You guys want to jump right into the first segment?
Do you have a new box on your shelf back there, top left corner?
Oh, I have stuff all over. It could be. I have a refrigerator in here right now. I'm getting flooring replaced. All of the carpeting in the house is going away, and I'm hoping my allergies will be much better once we have hardwood. So,
Very nice. All right, cereals. Are they good? Are they bad? All right, Lindsay. So this is all for you, essentially, right? Okay, so I'll just jump right into my question I have for you because I read your blog post there. And what do you think? Should a first-time author with no other titles under their belt try their luck with a serial right off the bat, or is this something you feel established authors would have the best luck with?
well, I think you're always going to have an easier time getting readers if you're an established author and already have a mailing list. But I actually think, it's something like it's going to call to you if it's something you're even vaguely interested in. You may have read some serials, you may have listened to some of the old radio shows, or even nowadays we've got the podcasts. People are splitting up their novels and doing audiobooks and installments. And if that's something that's kind of exciting to you, I think if you're a new author, it's actually kind of a way to maybe cheat a little bit and kind of come on the scene with 6 books, such as it is right away, 6 installments maybe, or however many you want to do in a serial. I don't think it's easier than a novel. I know that somebody has a question about that later, but if you really like the idea of episodic television, or just reading installments like that, you might give it a try. As I'll talk about more here, I found that as opposed to like a standalone novel, which can be pretty hard to market in today's environment, you kind of get some of the benefits of doing a series, but maybe each installment's only 20, 30,000 words. So you may be able to, if you're not a super prolific writer yet, you're just getting started, you may have better luck finishing, let's say, 100,000 words and then having 5 or 6 installments, as opposed to only having one product that you can sell. So I don't think you have to be an established author to give it a shot.
I'm looking forward to asking this next question here. You mentioned in your blog post that you felt it was necessary to spice it up a notch, assuming that's what readers expect in serials. Were those scenes more difficult to write, and are they scenes you would let your family read?
Well, I should make it clear for the readers or the listeners, because I don't think I did, that this was my pen name that writes science fiction romance. And because it's still a subdivision, subcategory, niche, whatever, of romance, that's why I felt it was necessary. I really do feel like if you're going to write a serial and target the romance reader, no matter whether it's science fiction, fantasy, or just contemporary mystery, whatever, that is something they very much expect coming into the story. If you're not writing spicy stuff for the serial, it probably doesn't need to be like graphic stuff on the page in every installment, but there needs to be like some sort of like progress in the relationship or something that leaves you kind of in doubt, some kind of conflict with the characters. With the pen name, I do write the more graphic, detailed stuff. So, and it was a challenge for me actually, because I tend to always write the story first and be a little more of an action adventure person at heart, and I kind of work in the romance where I can. In the pen name stuff. So it was a challenge for me, especially since I started out with the characters being like total enemies. And I'm not like the person that's like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill each other, let's jump in bed anyway. I like it to be logical. So I found that challenging. But if you're not doing any romance, people aren't going to expect that. That is just in that specific genre. I think you are going to need some of that in each installment of a serial to kind of keep your core reader interested. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily add it to like just a straight up space opera or urban fantasy if that's not part of the story. But if you're doing those, I would think you would probably need some action or mystery or whatever people read those things for should probably be in each installment. And some conflict, external and internal, between the characters, that kind of thing. I do let my mom read the pen name stuff, to answer part of your question. She's only interested in one of the series. It's kind of like Firefly with romance. She says she skims the detailed parts. I don't know. She actually likes them more than my fantasy, though, because they're pretty simple stories. I think she gets bogged down with multiple, a lot of point of view characters and the more epic scaled stuff. But yeah, whoever you're writing for, whatever genre, I think you do have to craft it so that it is kind of a page turner, especially if you're doing Kindle Unlimited, or even if you're not, if you want people to go on and buy all the installments, you do need to kind of have the good stuff in every episode or every installment, whatever you want to call it.
Here's a question I just thought of. Do you find it easier to write those type of elements into your books as your pen name, or do you think you'd be able to do it easily as writing under your real name?
Well, I started the pen. I don't really care anymore. I think in the beginning it was more of a thing, but I don't have a day job where it's like, oh, I got to worry if my boss finds out that I'm writing smut on the side, and I don't really care anymore. But in the beginning, I found it very freeing to do the pen name. I think when you're writing as yourself and you know that like your friends or your church buddies might be reading it, you do sort of feel a little inhibited maybe. So for people who are thinking of trying something like that. And I think it's the same way when you're writing horror or something like that too, where it's really graphically violent and you're maybe writing about pedophiles and things like that. You wonder if, gosh, are people going to judge me because of what I write? So I think the pen name can be kind of freeing in that way.
Yeah, I figured I just figured it'd be easier because I can just see like a family member or a friend or whatnot going, where the heck did she come up with that? I never knew. Whereas, with someone, you have under a different name, you can like, okay, well, yeah, it's just all made up believe, but it could be hard to take, when it's actually your name there. But in your blog post, hey, you write that your
Saying
first
nothing.
serial your first serial was enrolled in KU when it was actually getting ready to. It was still KU1, but I love how you mentioned that when you jump into it naturally, it switches to KU2 and it starts going off of a number of pages read versus the percentage, or that just the borrows period. So okay, under that I can see how under KU1 I can see how serials can become quite profitable provided you have the audience for it. But knowing K1 or KU1 turned into KU2, and you still released the serial anyways, citing difficulties trying to market and sell a standalone book. If you ever try another serial, will you enroll it in KU2?
All right. Just in case somebody's listening who doesn't know what these acronyms mean, I mean,
Oh,
probably
no.
everybody does,
Explain
but
it.
I'll just give the background. So if you enroll, Amazon has this KDP Select and wants you to be exclusive with them in order to get the perks, which are like being able to do a countdown deal, which means like lowering your price to whatever 99 cents and still getting the 70% royalty, or they let you make your book free for 5 days instead of putzing around with perma-free and hoping Amazon will price match. And then the other perk is that you get to be in the Kindle Unlimited, which is their lending library. Readers pay $10 a month, and they can borrow as many books that are in Kindle Unlimited as they want. So when we talk about KU, we're talking about Kindle Unlimited. And in the first version of the program, basically you got paid every time somebody borrowed one of your books, whether it was a short story, an installment for a serial, or a 500,000 word epic fantasy novel, such as Joe likes to write. So you got paid the same no matter what. You got paid for a borrow. As long as the reader got to 10%, you got, it was somewhere around 130 to 140 per borrow. It would fluctuate from month to month depending on how many borrows there were and how many people were enrolled and all that. So under the old program, it was very lucrative to do something like a serial, or it could be if people went on and borrowed all of the installments. And I quite honestly was like, well, the novel, it kind of sucks for novelists because you make more per sale on a novel than you do for a borrow. But I thought, well, if you broke up a story into like 6 parts, suddenly you'd be making $7, $8 per, what might just be one long novel or the same word count as that. And as usually happens when I decide to actually jump in with like gaming the system, it changes. The rules change before I ever get a chance. So I don't even know why I try, but I just tried this time because I'd wanted to try a serial for actually 3 years. I've had people on my blog before that do serials and enjoy it even before Kindle Unlimited was a thing. So yeah, I was going to try to do it and get that big fat KU1 money. But then in about June, as I was editing my serial, I decided to write the whole thing at once instead of writing it as I went, which I know some people do, but I wanted to be able to release every week until it was done and just know that I wasn't going to be stressing to try to get an installment out. But so in June, Amazon sent out the letter, we're changing the system. And now instead of getting paid by borrows flat across the board, you get paid by how many pages are read. So suddenly Joe with his 500,000 word epic fantasy Chihuahua Killer could be making you can make $20 on something that long. I don't know.
Chihuahua Killer. I love it.
I think Rachel Aaron was on her blog talking about, I think her books were over 100,000 words, well over. So basically what us guys, we three, all write for the most part. And she was doing really well, and that's what made me decide to well, let me just throw my serial in anyway and give it a shot. I figured it'd basically be like a novel, because it ended up being about 120,000 words for 6 installments. But yeah, I found that it still worked, and I know Joe's got some questions about it too, so I won't spoil everything. But I think it was still worth doing for sure. The pen name made really good money in September, August. So
Nice. That's all you can ask for.
yeah, for that reason alone, I don't regret it.
There you go. All right, Joe, you're up.
All right. Well, we discussed some of the benefits of doing a serial, like rapid releases to build momentum and being able to jumpstart having a series if you're a first timer. But as you sort of mentioned earlier, there are those who would think, I should say, that writing a serial is easier, because you could cynically say, well, the first couple paragraphs of every chapter is going to be when we last left our heroes, so you reset context, and that's going to take some throwaway time, and then you have to set up and hammer home the cliffhanger and join us next week portion of it. So really, when you think about it, you're only writing 2/3 of a chapter each time. And is that the case?
First off, I would say the only way I could see it being easier is kind of a mindset thing where if you are maybe a new writer and you're struggling to finish a novel or a couple novels, you might find it easier to have a goal of just, I got to do 25,000 words for this installment and then I've finished something. So you actually feel like you're making progress on the story. So in that way, I could see it being kind of easier, just that it's not so big of a task to complete an installment as it is to complete an entire novel. But as far as kind of crafting a story, a good story that's good enough to get people to buy all the installments, I probably think it's harder than writing a novel. If you lose someone at 20% in a novel, oh well, they already bought it. If you lose someone after the first segment of your serial, that means you lose 5/6 of your income because they're not going to go on and buy the rest of the installments. I think with a novel, people will maybe stick with it more if they've already bought it. They can skim a bit, see if things pick up. But you have to really write a tight and compelling story with a serial to make people continue to buy the episodes. So I think it was a little more challenging for me, honestly. But I knew right away at the beginning that I was going to put it all together into a set. So I wanted it to read perfectly smoothly as a complete story too. So I didn't do any of that. I didn't like last week on Star Trek: The Next Generation,
Right.
Worf was dating Deanna Troi. Oh my gosh! But I know you all remember that season.
Yeah, remember? They revisited that
Blocked it
concept.
out. But so I didn't do any of that. I just wrote it as a complete story. The only thing I did is I kind of crafted it so there were like little mini adventures within the overarching adventure. So I think it's a little less, maybe a little choppier, the final, if you read it all in one set, than like a straight novel would be. But I just tried to break it at the natural points where like, oh, we just finished this little thing, but now something exciting has happened. He's picked her up and slung her over her shoulder and he's kidnapping her. Oh my gosh, tune in next week.
Nice.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I could see the difficulties that might come up with writing a serial, particularly for me because, like, again, I write, what they call airport fantasy sometimes. Where it'll last you a 6-hour flight easy. Uh, uh, it therefore the pace can kind of be slow and slow to build, and I'm pretty sure nobody's going to work their way through two sort of slow expositional installments of a serial and then continue reading the serial. Like, yeah, so if you have pace problems, I got to imagine serials are tricky. All right, so moving on. Did you follow individual book stats much for things like sell through from book to book?
I did as I was releasing them. It gets a little murky once the box set is out because people could go from book one to book two, or they could decide it's still a deal for them to buy the complete set. And I found it was very similar to my series for me. Like, not everybody that bought book one would necessarily go on and buy book two, but once they were in the funnel, they stuck with it to the end. So I didn't have a lot of people going, nah, this sucks after the third part and not continuing on. And actually, it was a pretty good read through from book one to book two also. And I suspect a lot of that is KU because it was free for them essentially with their subscription. I was surprised how many people actually bought it because I didn't want people to spend 99 cents 6 times. I wanted them to borrow it because it was free for them and I got the page reads. Or I wanted them to wait because I made the final thing was $4.95, so they saved $1 and a penny or something like that. Whatever it ended up being. Maybe it's $2. No, it's $1.
Yeah, it's
Math required.
I can yeah I can see how like I know that's how I am when I'm releasing something. Like, I'm always terrified of how long I should wait before I discount an early book because I don't want to make it feel like I bilked my best fans by charging them more and then drop the price for people who don't care about me. So I'm always sort of conflicted about that sort of thing too.
And I
But
did actually. I was I think I released it too early. I wrote about that in my blog post, and I'll put a link to that in case anybody wants to read the whole 3,000 words or whatever I wrote. But I feel like I released it too soon while the 6 installments were still like ranking and that kind of thing. So if I had to do it again, I would wait at least a couple weeks after installment 6 came out before making the complete series available. But I felt guilty, like you're saying, with my core readers were like, "Oh, I hate serials. Can I just read the whole book?" And I'm like, I know, I hate them too. Here's the whole book. Go ahead, enjoy it. So
yeah, I would totally do that. Now yours is 6 chapters.
it was 6 installments, and I made them all 99 cents. And then yes, the final one, I was going back and forth between $3.99 and $4.99. I went with $4.95 because why not?
Sure.
And I made the first installment just kind of happened to be almost 30,000 words, so it was the longest one and probably the best deal if you paid 99 cents. I kind of worried that like there was one in the middle that was only about 15,000 words, so I was like, oh, people are going to say it's too short. But I figured that's still, for 99 cents, that's not bad. A short story might only be 5,000 words. Since 99 cents is the lowest we can go,
Yeah.
I guess there could be worse.
Yeah. It'll be. I know some people have done like 13, like basically like a season of a TV show as their serial, and it'd be sort of interesting to find out from someone with a longer sequence if there's like a sharp drop off at a certain point, like people just don't feel like investing in the full story. I guess it
I've
really
def-
depends upon the story.
yeah, I've seen that where people are like really bitter in the reviews. If it's going to be like 12 episodes at 99 cents, then you're in the
Yeah.
$12 range. And see, I wanted mine to still be, that's why I picked six. It's like a novel, 5.99 or 5.96, whatever, 5.94. Math again on the fly. I can't do it on the fly. Give me a pad of paper. But so I wanted it to be comparable to buying a full-length novel because I would definitely be careful for people that are thinking of doing this and doing 20 episodes, even though you might end up with like 300,000 words or 500,000 words. People are still going to kind of go, I'm being strung along here.
Yeah. No, nobody wants to feel like they're being nickel and dimed.
Yeah, so maybe you could make it like I know the self-publishing podcast guys did episodes and then they had a season one and that was that season, just like a TV show. So it seemed like their season one was like a novel. And then season two was like the second novel in the series. And I think the way they set it up and made it really clear like that, probably people didn't care that they were buying 24 episodes or 30
Hmm.
episodes, whatever it ended up being at the end.
Yep, I think it's probably a good way to do it. I have one more question of my own, and then we have another one we're gonna follow up with it that was submitted by a viewer. All right, you mentioned in your article that the work necessary to release the serial on all of the other platforms is probably more than it's worth because you'd have to upload each individual thing every single week to each of the different storefronts. Have you done any research into how other serials have done that were released wide? Because it's been observed that other platforms behave differently. Do you know if of anyone who's gone wide with their serials?
I don't know of anyone. I mean, I know the self-publishing podcast guys did their stuff everywhere, and I think it could work, especially like in their case, they were longer episodes and they were doing a season, and it was an ongoing thing. Although I think they've kind of switched now to just releasing the whole season at once, because it does end up being a lot of work, and you also get the case where people end up with all these little episodes on their e-reader instead of one book. Because so far none of the e-readers seem to really handle serials very well.
Yeah.
Ideally it should just take up one slot on your Kindle or whatever you've got, and instead you're like, look, 24 episodes. There's that Joe Lalo. He's just all over
He's
cluttering up
filling up
my
the shelf.
device.
Yeah,
So
I've had people who didn't want to have the individual books of a trilogy on their thing. They wanted a collected set.
yeah, but so I don't have experience with it since this was my first one, and because it was in KDP Select, obviously I couldn't go into the other stores. But like I said, I don't really regret that because I think if I was going to release it wide, I might just release the complete season because it does end up being a lot of work if you've got 7 ebooks and you're uploading it everywhere every week, and you're also going to want to update the back matter when you have the next episode available with like, oh, here's the link to the next episode, and so.
Oh yeah.
And when you only stand to sell it for 90, if you're doing them for 99 cents, you're only going to make 35 cents most places. I think Apple gives you 70 cents or whatever if you upload direct. And I know there's a deal with Smashwords. If you go through Smashwords or D2D to get into Barnes& Noble, I think you get the 70% on the 99-cent stuff too. But compared to at Amazon with the KU the way it is right now, I was making like $1 to $1.50 per episode because if they read all the way through. So it just seemed like it was worth the time and effort there. But yeah, it's up to every person. You're like,
Yeah.
am I leaving money on the table? Do I have fans waiting for me in those stores? And with my pen name, I don't really. So
Yeah, it seems like the only places that would really potentially have a significant impact is Oyster, which is going away, and Scribd, which both have the basically the KU model where you borrow. So those might be places where a serial would do okay.
Yeah, I would say now you can actually, the updates seem to be quick enough with Draft to Digital and Smashwords that, it used to be like it would take a couple weeks to get into the catalogs there. I think it's better now, so I don't know if anybody out there tries it. Let us know what your experience is with going wide with the serial.
Yep. And now we have the viewer question from Edward Giordano. He wanted to know if you could discuss cover strategies for serials, and should you try to make every one look different or just reuse the same?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Why didn't you guys think of that question? Because I think that kind of the accepted strategy or accepted way to do it right now is what I usually see out there with other serials is you basically have the same cover and then you'll, like what I did with mine is I had them do the title in a different color each time. And it says like part one, part two, part three. I think that's a good because it shows that it's a serial right off the bat. People can see that, and of course, also it saves you money on cover art. My designers didn't charge me very little for the changes to the other covers. I want to say they only charged me like $20 for all six, in addition to the complete serial box set one. So it's when you're standing only make 99 cents per episode, or 99 cents, 35 cents more likely per episode. Yeah, you probably don't want to spend a lot for original cover art for each one. I also probably wouldn't charge $2.99. I don't know, we didn't really talk about pricing, but I have seen that too where people go like 99 cents on the first one and then $2.99 for each additional one, trying to get the 70% royalty, which I understand, but I think again, you get into the thing where you're going to get reviews about people who are upset. They've done the math. Unlike
Yeah.
me, they can do math in their head, and they're like, "Wait a minute here. This is $12 to get this story. I'm being ripped off."
Yeah, yeah, that's it's tricky like that. If it's going to be something shorter than a normal novel, and you're going to be charging basically the low end novel price, then it's going to have to be really, really good because you're competing with people for big five published people now because of how the price is going to work out.
Yeah, and in some genres, you're seeing whole novels for 99 cents still. So it's not that you can't charge more, but maybe you just need to have like a really tough skin and be prepared for those one star, too much money, authors nickel and diming me, because they
Yeah.
come.
All right. Well, that concludes our serial talk. So now we're gonna move on to when is it time to quit the day job? And I'm in a spotlight for this one.
All right, and I think Jeff's going to kind of chime in a bit too, because apparently he is just getting there, like thinking about doing this pretty soon.
I'm really close.
So you guys can both answer my questions if you like.
Cool.
All right, first question for I guess for Joe, but Jeff, feel free to say whatever you want to say on the topic. But what made you decide to quit the day job and become a full-time author?
I was doing well, first and foremost, but the thing that really made me decide to quit was that things were getting progressively worse at the day job. Like, there came a point at the day job where I was offered what was essentially a promotion, at the very least a raise, but I was going to be hired into the company that I had been subcontracted through. And the deal came where it would be like it was a substantial improvement in my payment, but it also would have meant I had to work basically 20 hours of overtime every week, which happened to be the amount of time I was writing. So I literally had to choose, am I going to continue writing or am I going to continue this career? So they forced my hand and I decided to continue writing. And I think it was the right decision because they literally canned the entire department the following week.
That's how much you were missed. They're like, oh, he's bailing. Screw this. We're out
Get
of
rid of
here.
them all, burn it.
All right, well, I think Jeff's maybe more in the position I was in of being self-employed already. So, Jeff, what are you going to look at as far as what's your reason for wanting to finally do it?
Well, with my point of view, yeah, I've been self-employed now for over 10 years, and it actually got to the point where the income coming from writing, which originally started just as a hobby, all of a sudden surpassed the income coming in from the actual main thing I had been doing. So I started thinking about it, going, okay, well, laziness. It's like, okay, well, let's see. Either I can sit on my ass and just work on something I really enjoy doing, or I can go out there and solve some of the most boring, mundane problems on the face of the planet. This is more interesting and intriguing for me. I am getting fans worldwide, which is really weird to say. So I'm going to go with the writing thing. So literally, I'm shifting focus from the computer tech thing over to the writing thing, and the writing thing is gaining more and more momentum, and the computer tech stuff is kind of getting pushed to the side a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I still do it from time to time when there's a really brain dead one out there, but I'm now focusing more on writing than the computer tech stuff. So that's what's managed let me increase my number of releases per year, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's actually probably easier and nicer for those of us that were self-employed before, because for me it was the same thing. I just kind of gradually transitioned that I was way more excited about the writing and the publishing, and uh, fortunately, I still had my websites and blogs, and I was doing all that, so I still made money afterwards from AdSense and affiliate. I still get a little bit. I haven't touched anything since 2010,
Wow.
but so that was a nice position to be in. So I admire much more people that actually take the jump, and it's like one week you have a paycheck, and the next week you don't have a paycheck. So Joe, did you do the standard advice of like socking away 6 months of savings before taking the jump?
I sucked away an awful lot more than that. I was I don't. I live well within my means. So even with just the income from my day job, I had a reasonable savings. So essentially, everything I was making from the books that I wasn't also spending on the books was going directly into savings. So I ran the numbers when I finally quit my job, and they recommend 6 months of a sort of a nest egg. I had something like 4 years of a nest egg. So I saved an awful lot before I was comfortable, and even then I was still like, what if I get hit on the head and it all goes away tomorrow? So yeah, I definitely played things very, very safe financially.
All right, ladies out there, I think Joe and his nest egg are available. So if you want to look him up, Joe, make sure to get a prenuptial agreement before you get
Yeah,
involved with
I'll
anyone
keep
from
that
the
in
show.
mind.
All right, well, would you say that since you've quit, has it been about what you expected, or have there been any surprises?
It's some surprises I have to say because it's been like, I mean, I have 8 hours more per day, roughly 8 hours more per day in which I can write. And you would expect then to get 8 hours more writing done, but creative pursuits aren't physical pursuits where amount of time worked equals amount of product. It was really creativity sort of starts to run dry and has to be refilled. So I almost burnt myself out in the first few months when I was just like firing off unusually large word counts for myself. So I found actually it was surprisingly hard to stay motivated after a while. That was a big surprise. Other than that, I think that it's pretty well gone the way I hoped it would, better than I hoped it would, because I'm sort of a pessimist when it comes to my own pursuits. So my expectations were after 3 or 4 months, the bottom would drop out and I'd be working again at the end of the year. So exceeded my expectations in that way, but oddly enough, the actual writing turned out to be a little bit harder than I expected.
I totally understand that, and I would say one of the things that's been nice about doing the pen name is that it's a different enough genre that it's like I can take a break from, like right now I'm like finishing my Dragon Blood series. I'm like, ah, I need a break from these characters. I can't write the next one right now. So it is nice to kind of, you have that with your multiple series going on too.
It's
Um,
true. I also have a
yeah.
thing called the bad idea exercise, which tends to absorb about 1,000 or 2,000 words a day. Sometimes it turns into a NaNoWriMo project, but often it's just a growing pile of discarded words.
All right. You haven't mentioned that before on the show, I don't think.
It exists somewhere else. Basically, I guess I never lost the tendency to fill notepads with things that I don't intend to show anyone. So that's how I recharge a little bit. I'm like, this is a terrible idea. Let me put it in the bad idea exercise so I don't use it someplace else.
All right. Well, let me ask Jeff, have you found that since this year, since you've got 4 novels you're finishing up, have you gotten any of that kind of burnout or anything like that, or are you still really excited about it?
Oh, well, after I released my fifth Tales of Lantari, which would have been the third book this year, I really started itching to try something new. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy writing fantasy, and I've got a lot of fans out there that would crucify me if I stopped at this point. But I wanted to try something else, which is why I'm starting up with the other genre mentioned in passing there, and it's just something new there. And my wife actually said, you know what, if you're going to start this other one here, you really shouldn't try and put the other one on hold, because all your existing fans are going to get annoyed and possibly leave and look for other stuff there. So now I'm working on essentially will be my 10th book, which is what this new series is going to be, actually in my now is going to be my free time, because my main time is set working on the fantasy, and the free time now is set working on the mystery. So it's just a matter of if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this on the weekend. And so essentially, if I get do things well, hopefully I can have them both released by the end of the year. So that would be something I'll believe it when I see it. But hey, so far it's looking pretty good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's definitely, I think it can be great to jump genres. And even though from a marketing point of view, maybe it's ideal if you just all you write is like epic fantasy or steampunk or science fiction, whatever your thing is, it's what your fans want. But I think you can jump genres if you're willing to like commit to the first three books and really get the series off the ground. So, we'll get updates from you and see how it's going. All
Good
right.
deal.
Last question for me is Joe. Looking back now, do you like wish you had waited or do you wish you had done it sooner? It sounds like things have gone pretty well, so you're not having too many regrets.
No, yeah, I'm not having too many regrets. I mean, every now and then, I used to when I was first starting off, I spent a lot of time refreshing my earnings pages and being worried. Like that was it was early on. I would many times an hour check to see how things were going, and now I'm much less obsessed about that. But I still get a little bit nervous, like during the summer when there tends to be a slump in books, and I'll be like, oh, I earned less than my day job this month. That's no good. But I think probably I still wish I had done it earlier, because the best year I had was the second year that I was publishing. I made about 50% more that year than any of the other years, and I feel like if I was writing that and put two or three extra books out that year, which I probably could have if it was my full-time job, I probably would have been able to carry the momentum a lot further. So in hindsight, knowing when the peak of my discoverability was, that would have been the time to quit. But unfortunately, that was the second year that I was writing. So it was like the previous year, I would not make a living wage off of writing. It would have been a leap of faith if I had quit my job that year. So probably it's best I didn't do that in terms of playing it safe. But had I done it, I might be in a different position now.
Yeah, I think I've seen probably more people go the other way where they quit too early. They assume like, oh, I had a great 3 months, at Amazon, or this series is doing really well. And then it's hard to keep the momentum going, even in a series. And then your next series maybe won't do as well as the last one did. So I personally would say, wait until you have a couple series under your belt so that you have different book ones you can take turns advertising at the different places. And probably wait until, in addition to having some money saved up, wait until you've kind of seen a full year or two and seen are the summers slower, or is this series sustaining itself and still getting new readers in a couple years after I finished it? Yeah, and definitely don't rely on, there were people last year that were relying on KU 1.0. They're just writing short fiction and serials and novellas, and then it changes, and they go from thousands of dollars a month to maybe hundreds of dollars a month. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I have to agree. I think 2 years is probably the happy. Like again, if you're able to, if you can watch your income for 2 years and see if it's a cycle or if it was oh, I had a really good Christmas season 2 years in a row. That means Christmas seasons are probably going to be really good. And if you're earning reasonably consistently for two full years, then you can, have the expectation of at least doing it for one more year. So two full cycles, I think, is a good idea. And
Definitely. I
and
I had I waited like three, and I actually watched all three. I was like, okay, this is going quite well. Maybe I should focus more energy on it. Is how it went for me.
Yeah, I think I ended up doing. I started earning pretty well in 2011. I didn't quit until 2014. So, yeah, about 3 years is how long I waited.
all right, well, that's my question, so I'll let Jeff finish things up for tonight.
All right, let's see here. Joe, I've gotten this a few times. I'm curious if you have as well. Have your family/friends given you the look of scorn when you tell them you're a full-time author? I've gotten several of the "what's the matter? Can't hack it with a real job" look, and I can honestly say I don't much care for it. So, what would you tell or show your family or friends when presented with this situation, if you have, that is?
I have had some people when I was getting toward the end of my day job, the 5 weeks between when I told them I was leaving and when I did leave, I got a lot of people who were sort of looking down upon me for my decision. And not so much my family. My dad was the one who was not, scornful but concerned that it wasn't going to be a livable, sustainable thing. Despite the fact, again, I had been earning basically more than my day job for 3 years at that point. But what I will tell them, my typical thing was, in my best year of writing, the entire income from my day job was enough to pay the taxes on my writing. So it seems to me like writing is probably the winner. And when a similar thing happened the following year, it's just like, you know, what can I say? Even from the point of view of raw greed, this is probably the better decision. So I sort of like, I still get the people who tell me, oh, it's not a real job. I've even seen like tons of articles online talking about self-publishing as something you can do when you can't get a real job. So I would say it's a real job. It takes some skill and some education and some know-how. But I sort of shrug off people who. I mean, what can I say? I'm allowed to wake up whenever I want to and decide not to work on any given day. So it's better than most jobs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more there because, yeah, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the fact that I can pretty much wake up whenever I want. Although I really can't because I've got a dog that needs meds at a certain time of the morning. But I mean, aside from that, I theoretically could. Let me ask you this: I'm fairly certain. I know I've asked you this before, but for our listeners that didn't hear that particular answer the last time, do you still treat your full-time author career as any other job? Meaning, do you try and put yourself on a schedule and adhere to it as much as possible?
Yes, I do. I try. I don't always succeed. Lately, it's been easy because of the renovation that's been going on. I have to be up every morning at 7 a.m. to make sure I'm here for the guy to let him in. But generally speaking, I set an alarm. I get up at a certain time. I try to write. I have word counts, not so much hours worked in the day, so I will keep going until I hit my word count. But broadly speaking, I can get all of the words I need to get written in about 4 hours if I'm dedicated. So I tend to break my day up into I wake up, I write until around 11:30, and then I go take a walk and chores and out of the house stuff, and I come back in and I write either until I hit 3,000 or 5,000 words, whatever my goal is, or until I feel like I'm done writing, because sometimes you're flowing and don't stop when you're flowing. Like I said in an earlier thing, no maximums. 3,000 is a minimum. Don't stop when you get to 3,000. So the job is 3,000 words, and I will treat that on schedule and as an assignment, and then the rest is flexibility.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is it's sometimes it's just hard for me to get into what I always call the zone, and once I'm there, I mean, if anything brings me out of it without me coming out of it myself, it instantly goes into grumpy land. I'm like, what? Well, I'm really working over here, believe it or not. And my mom, when she lived here for a couple of years just to help her out, she just couldn't get it through her head that I'm actually working here. I'll be like, hey Jeff, you busy?
Yeah.
No, what the hell? I'm playing Tetris over here. What can I do for you there? But it's. I think she was finally starting to get it when she saw like the number of titles being released and how much. I was like, okay, we can go ahead and do this. We can do that. I mean, income's looking great. I've got fans all across the freaking planet. Somebody from Tasmania said, "I love your books," and I'm like, I didn't know I have books for sale in Tasmania, but cool. So
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it can get annoying sometimes. But yeah, I do the same thing. It's like, okay, I'll try and write several thousand words a day, and if by chance it goes better, things keep going, I will not stop until finally like either my dog comes up and snaps me out of the zone, or else like, okay, oh man, got to go get the wife, and then I got to go and pick her up there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
I think one of the what you said is true. Talking about what it's not a real job. One of the profoundly difficult things to do is to establish to someone when you see me at my desk and you see I have words in front of me, I'm at work. So treat it as though you were calling me at my day job, because like my brother works nights, so he'll wake up 11:30 or so, and he'll come down and he'll sit over there and he'll start having a conversation with me, and I sort of have to I try to make it clear that I'm doing something, but also, if it's important, I gotta talk. Or even this, working the renovation. My job, because I am able to be home during this thing, I'm on point for this guy who's here. So I have to sit here. I can't escape to a coffee house and do my job there for a while. I'm here to answer questions and make sure that he can get in and get out. So whereas most people are willing to accept this is my career, most people are not willing to accept that I have to do it. So that's the weird side effect of having a job that looks identical to recreation.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have people that say, like, okay, he just sits and he writes all day. It was like, okay, well, I've kind of got it plotted out, like what I need to cover the time frame in order to hit my deadline, in order to release this book. If I don't release this book, oddly enough, I can't make the sales on said book. Therefore, I'm not making money. This is how I make my money. This is how I can pay the mortgage. This sort of thing. But they just think, okay, I sit here, I'll play Bejeweled all day, mess around on Facebook. Like, no, I'm sitting here staring at a big screen typing because A, I like it, and B, this is my job. So crazy. Has anyone ever asked you for advice on how to become a full-time author? And if so, what would you say to them?
Yeah, people. I've gotten emails. Probably 2 or 3 times a year, I'll get an email from someone. Also, I had a big thread on Kboards for a while, where when I was first making the decision, I sort of started talking about what should I do, and then I started getting information from other people and consolidating that and giving it back out. But as you might imagine, a lot of the stuff I would say is stuff that we have been doing, talking about in this podcast. So make sure you've got the money, make sure you watch the cycle, and make sure you're being consistent and that you can get through the lean times, and make sure you're prepared to keep your output up and avoid distraction when it doesn't feel like you have to write. Remember that you do have to write. But the overall best advice I can give is make sure you're going to be able to do it long enough to know if you can keep doing it. So one full book, if you can get from concept to release to hopefully payback on that book without, if you think you can last long enough to do that, then maybe it's time to try it, but not before. So the 6 months is probably the good point in terms of savings.
So when you say that to people, would you find that they are encouraged or discouraged?
I find, unfortunately, most of the people I give advice to are discouraged, and it's in part because of I played it very safe, so it's unrealistic for people to if you're really excited about it, you don't want to wait 2 years to see how how the cycles are going to run for your books, and if you're really excited about it, you don't want to have to wait, keep plugging away at the day job until you've got enough of a nest egg to last through what might be a very tight year. So it's not like oh, do it right away. It's like waving a magic wand. So it can turn some people away from the idea.
Yeah, because what a lot of people don't seem to realize is when you're a full-time author, you are officially self-employed, and you are not going to have great months every single month. Sometimes it'll be awesome. Sometimes it'll suck rocks. You start questioning yourself, like, uh-oh, hey, did I do the right thing here? But sales pick up again, so that's why, yeah, you watch the patterns and say, like, okay, is this sustainable? Can you do this, or should you just do this on your free time and stick with your day job, sort of thing? But
yeah. And I should say I have a note here for this, but in terms of advice and stuff, aside from saving up the money, like we talked about before, there's a few things you need to be aware of. I wasn't like you each had experiences being self-employed. I did not. So there are a few things you need to keep in mind, because when you quit your job and start writing, you are a business and you are self-employed. You need to start thinking about things that you didn't have to think about when you had a boss. And the ones that I had to make sure I had covered were health insurance, which got a little bit easier ever since they had the health insurance marketplace, healthcare marketplace, whatever. So that's handy. You need to pay your taxes quarterly when you are a self-employed person. So I didn't do that the first couple of times because I technically wasn't self-employed. I was still working, but because basically I think it's like $400 or something like that, some very low number, where once you start earning above that consistently, they want estimated quarterly taxes every year, or else you're going to pay thousands of dollars in penalties. So make sure that you're doing that. If you don't think you can handle it, maybe it's time to get an accountant, which is what I ended up doing. And he called me basically an idiot for not having gotten him 2 years earlier when I got dinged twice for not doing things right. And the other things you need to worry about are retirement. Either save money, invest money, or get somebody to do retirement for you because you're not going to have a 401k anymore. I ended up doing 2 different IRAs and something called a SEP, which is a simplified employee pension, I think. So, like, put away for, if ideally you can be an author until the day you die, but maybe you're going to want to retire. Be prepared to be able to do that. And also, as we were saying before, budgeting. Figure out, put your money away, put yourself on a salary, because you don't want to just spend all the money that you earn and then realize at the end of the year, oh, the government wants a third of that and I don't have it anymore. So put yourself on a budget. I refer to it as the war chest. I put the money it takes to release the next 2 books I have socked away, and whenever I empty out one, I fill in for the next. And then the money that's going to go to taxes, I basically just treat it as though I don't even have it. I treat the taxes for this year as taken out of last year. And then the rest, that's for Joe. So being good with your budget is super important because no one else is going to be doing it for you.
Very true.
And yeah, it's about what I got.
All right, I was just going to add to that you'll actually need to make more self-employed because you pay more taxes.
Yes,
There's something that when you're employed, your boss pays half of the self-employment tax. I think it's called whatever it is, FICA, Medicare, all that stuff. So you have to pay more. You get taxed more. So, and then again, you have to pay for your own health insurance, or figure it out. So you're probably going to need to make however much you make, like another 20% maybe before you're going to be even. Yeah. And you're losing all your benefits like vision, eye care, all that stuff is often not covered. Like dental, I don't have dental on the insurance I have for self-employment. You usually don't get as good of a plan because you don't want to pay out the nose. If you're generally a healthy person, you're going to be like, no, I'm paying for the minimum thing here.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out when people say you need to have 6 months in the bank, it's 6 months of those expenses, 6 months of how much it's going to cost you to live after you quit the job, not how much it was costing you before. So you could be figuring on a couple, as much as $500-600 extra per month, depending on what your health insurance is going to be. So yeah, it's you have to really be aware of what the costs are going to be. Also, I should say, because I just realized this, if you went to college, lots of alumni associations have group insurance plans. This is one of the ways you can sort of get your hands on something that's closer to what you were used to paying from your day job. There's no one going to be contributing to it but you, but you're going to get a higher. You could get a higher tier plan through alumni association is one. I think some of the guilds actually have insurance plans too. If you really take writing seriously and able to get into one. So pursue look into your health insurance options. Or it also helps, by the way, if you're married to someone who has health insurance. I don't have that benefit, but many of the indie authors I follow are fortunate enough to be on their spouse's health insurance.
Yeah, my own self-employment health insurance keeps going up, and my wife has said, okay, because I already know it's going to be horrendous if I try to add myself to hers, but if it ever gets to a point where it gets so expensive on mine that it matches hers, the heck with it, we'll switch to hers. But yeah, it helps. Like I'm already covered under her dental, her vision, her all that stuff there, so that part's good. Is the basic stuff, I'm getting away with the basics that I can keep covered, essentially.
All right, lots of good information. Last tip would be if you get to the point where you're fortunate enough to be making quite good money, you definitely want to look at incorporating. There's a way with like an S Corp that you don't have to pay as much of that self-employment tax because you're paying yourself a salary out of the earnings from the business. This is way more than we need to go into here, but definitely ask your accountant, talk to somebody if you get to the point where, I think if you're even making like $50,000 a year, it becomes worth looking into this because you can save yourself a little money. But yeah, gosh, lots of good information. I hope something was useful to people. Thanks for listening, everyone, and
hopefully we didn't discourage too many people.
Yeah, as dangerous as it can sound, it's absolutely worth doing, or I wouldn't have done it, because Trust me, I am not I am a risk averse person, and stepping off the reliable day job, which turned out to not be reliable because they would have fired me a week later, but stepping off of what I thought was a reliable day job into the definitively unsteady and not necessarily sustainable authordom was absolutely the best decision I've made in my probably my entire life. So give it a try if you think you can.
Yeah, and people will know, like in their industry too, like it's maybe not the end of the world if you try it and then have to go back and get a job. Depending on your industry, I know some places that like look at it, they frown at a gap in your resume, but I guess that's very American. Apparently,
Yeah.
it's less of a problem in other countries, so you know your situation. And I always say, as coming from self-employed, it's good to have multiple sources of income. And as an author, we can do that with our paperbacks, audiobooks, all this different stuff, and different retailers we
Absolutely.
get paid by. Whereas when you're just working for one person, that's often, your only source of income. So it may not actually be any more risky
Yeah,
to be an
sure.
author than to have a normal job. So
And I've
Right.
often said, if somebody says, what do you do about the gap in your resume?" Tell them that you were running a small business because that's what you're doing.
Exactly right.
or you were touring the world on your yacht and you just didn't feel like working.
Or just give them your Amazon page. Like, "Ah, that's what I was doing."
Or traveling along all the western states, at your leisure, going from the south to the north, back to the south.
Next year, Jeff will be broadcasting from his RV as he's cruising the highways.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yep. And we'll see you next week.
All
Take it
right.
easy.
Bye-bye.